The meeting is started, Sean.
Okay,
Recording is started.
cool. Let me do this. I want to go to, yeah, I guess documents will be good. There we go. All right. So today we're going to talk about file streams, and not in the sense that you have like a read stream or a write stream to a file. We're talking about default and named file streams. So you can think of file streams as like a schema at the file system level. So when you save a file, it writes it to the default stream. In this case, it would be data. And it looks like this. That's what the file stream itself looks like. Um, it's the default stream, so you don't ever have to specify it. But files do have different streams that they get saved to. And as a matter of fact, files oftentimes belong to multiple streams. With me so far? Cool. So what that means is, let me ask you a question. When you create like attributes on a file, when you give an individual file security, right? You give somebody read access to it, or when you give or when you unblock a file, right? Or if you give a file a certain attribute like read only or something like that, right? Have you ever asked yourself how that actually gets done? Where that information is stored? So the answer is
Mm,
file streams. So let me just uh, show you, and it'll become a little more clear. So I wonder, yep, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. I'm looking for, that's a different one, that's a different one, it's a different one. Okay, too much of that. Let me just grab some code over here. So I'm looking for this guy. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to get item, and I'm looking at a specific file, and I'm going to specify the stream. I want to see all the streams that this file belongs to. So when I do that, I can see that it's only got one stream right now, the data stream. So what that means is it's only got a single file connected to it, or uh, a single stream that it belongs to. I think I've got another one in here that I was using before. Let me find it. SP book notes. I'll do that one. So I'll come here. Oops. Oh, it's only got one now too. It belongs to one stream, and you can see the stream right there. And this is how you, and I'll find one with multiple streams here in a sec. And this is how you specify the stream. You give the file, and then you give colon colon, and then the name of the stream. So let's see here. I could have sworn I had one with multiple streams. Let me check a specific stream. Right, so that one doesn't have a zone identifier anymore. I could create one, but I'm looking for one that already has a multiple stream. So let's go to downloads instead, and let's look at it in there. So I'll say there, There we go. So we've got multiple streams here in the downloads folder, and this is exactly the stream I would expect to see. I've got one in the data stream, and I've got one in the zone identifier stream. And what this is this is actually a file called sqlcon.zip. It's the same name as the file in the data stream, except it is in a different stream. It's in the zone.identifier stream, which means, like I said, basically a different schema, right? And all the other streams except the data stream are hidden. So whenever you download a file, it writes it to two streams. It writes it to the data stream that has the data, and it writes it to the hidden zone identifier stream, which has metadata about the file. And in this case, it tells you whether or not the file itself is safe. If it came from an internal source, it'll probably be in zone 1. If it comes from an unsafe source, it'll probably come from zone 4, which is restricted sites, right? So whenever you create, and there are lots of streams, right? I'll show you the streams here in a minute. When you create attributes like hidden or permissions or file stamps or stuff like that, right? Those go to an attribute list stream, which has a file of the same name, just in a different stream. So the file itself is hidden. And you can't see all of those other streams. Some of those internal streams, like the attribute list and some of the others, are hidden from you. You can't view them even if you try. But well, there may be a way to, but it's more trouble than it's worth. And the data in there is probably encrypted or in binary or something like that, right? So you wouldn't be able to do anything with it if you had. But some of these things you can. So like if I wanted to see what's inside this file right here, I'm looking for it. There we go. This file right here, that's the actual name of the file. I can do that. So all I have to do is say, oh, what's that command? Hold on, I'm thinking about it. It is type. So I would say, let me grab this file name real quick. I think it would just be here. Let me make sure that I got that. So if I say, maybe this is it. Nope, it is. Oh. Do I have to put a zone in there? It's been a while since I've done this one. I did this one just the other day. Let me see. I'm going to cheat a little bit and go back up to that one. Right. I got it right. I just didn't do that. So here you can see that it's in zone 1. And so this is the metadata I get, right? In that hidden stream that tells me whether or not this is a safe file. And you guys have unblocked files before, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening when you're unblocking a file. When I unblock a file, it changes this zone ID from 4 to 1. Let me show you how this works. So I can actually change this. I can write to this file myself because it's a plain text file. It's just a zone identifier, right? So I can write to this myself. So let's take a look. I'm in downloads. So let's take a look at this and properties. And if I unblock this, let me see what it says then. I unblocked it so it doesn't have an identifier. Okay, sure. So I should be able to set the content for this guy. Let me see if I've got a zones file in here. So I'm going to copy the zones file over here and go back up to downloads and copy it there. There we go. And zones, all it does is it has the same thing. I'm setting it to zone 4. So if I want to do that here, all I have to do is get content from zones. So I just set a variable equal to that content. And now I just have to set it. And with any luck, it'll actually let me. There we go. So now, if I come back here, it should be blocked again. There we go. Now it's blocked again. You see? Because I set it to zone 4. So whenever you download something, it automatically writes 2 files at least, right? It writes 2 files. It writes, well, it has the ability to write to 2 files, because if it's from a trusted source, it may not even create one, right? And in this case, whenever I set this to zone 1, it deletes it, right? And that's the well, zone 1 is the internet zone. Zone 2 is the local intranet zone. 3 is trusted sites, right? Let's try to set it to 3. See what happens. So I'm going to set this to 3. Save it. And let's come up here and let's get that new data and let's set it and let's see what happens. If we're lucky, it's still blocked, but so zone 3 still blocks. So you get the idea here. Let me see what it's set to here. There we go. It's set to zone 3, but so we've set it to zone 3, which is trusted sites zone. So, and again, whenever you set these things, you've got different ones like volume name. In fact, here, let me just drag this down. Well, I can't drag it down. It's on a different box. Yeah, I can. You guys can see that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here, and it's notable that these file streams are part of the NTFS file system, right? This whole thing gets blown out of the water if you move this to a different file system. So you've got this default data stream here. You've got attribute list. You've got bitmap, logged utility, object ID, reparse point, security descriptor, and then volume name. So all of these different zones that they can belong to, and I'm sure there are more. And you can create your own, right? You can, and that's where this becomes useful a little bit, right? So if I create my own file in my own zone, what do you think is going to happen? Let's say that I go, let me do this. Let me set content, and instead of value zone, let's say, hey there, guys. And I'm gonna, instead of zone identifier, I'm gonna write it to my new zone. Yeah, that's terrible. There we go, my new zone. So, and in fact, I'm gonna create a file that doesn't exist. So I'm going to say new zone info.text. Okay, so it created it, but what exactly did it create? I've got new zone info.text here. That's empty. But it did create that zone file on its own. So now if I say, if I want to type this, so you can see it created my hidden file and the text, but it also created something on the main data stream as well. That's just an
Yeah.
empty file. Now, where this can come in handy is with things like if you're writing an application and you want to have a hidden config file for something, or if you want to say keep a hidden file stream that's got, say, decryption info, or you could even put like username and passwords in there, right? I mean, you can put anything in these things you want. I don't know that I would necessarily keep them in plain text, but if you wanted to have a file that had, say, a decryption key, then or a master decryption key, right? Then you could put it in a file like this and maybe even encrypt that as well at the application level. But it's one more level of security because almost nobody ever looks for different zones or different file streams, right? So you can see all of these guys. And if I want to do this again, let's see here. Let's find this guy. It was get item. And if I do this now, uh, so I can see that it belongs to that it has data and it has my new zone.
Right.
So I've created an invisible file that's associated with this file, and its fate, their fates are tied together, right? If I delete this file, it'll delete the stream, all of the alternate stream files as well. But
Uh,
and why is this relevant to you? Well, it's relevant to you because in SQL, there are alternate stream files that get created with snapshots. So
right.
you remember, I think it was before 2014 or 2016. I forget exactly which version that the snapshot files were hidden, right? You couldn't go out to the drive and see the snapshot files. They were hidden.
Yes. 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 When the
And
DBCC is running. Yeah.
they used named file streams to make that happen.
Okay.
And they probably still do for certain things. The files probably still have some named streams. We could go to a drive and look at some of the SQL files and see if they belong to alternate streams, because it may have permissions and stuff like that tied to them, right? But you notice how it these files have some level of permission, but you notice how they don't have the attributes stream or what was that other one I'm thinking of? Let me see. The attribute stream or the volume name stream, right? Or the security descriptor. That's because these guys are hidden even from us. I think there's a way to do it. Now, sysinternals has a tool called Streams, and you can use it to view streams and delete streams from a file. And you're supposed to be able to possibly view some of these other streams, but I haven't been able to get it to view any of the other streams, even in admin mode. So we'll just call those other streams hidden from us. But this is how this stuff is managed for files. It's got the file itself doesn't have security. It's got a different file with the exact same name in a different schema, right? That houses this different information that Windows looks for when it goes to check for file security or location or whether or not it's safe to open, stuff like that. So that is default and named file streams. And I'll send you guys this list with some of this code in here. I'll send you guys this thing right here, right?
Okay.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
This is all new. How about the file you just created? If you delete the data stream file which actually created and which we are able to see the file, what happens to the other stream? Even that gets deleted?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's a tricky.
Remember I said their fates are tied together.
Yeah. I was just reconfirming.
Yep. But it's cool to have these hidden files that have that are tied to a file, right? And you can use those for metadata for the files.
Any way we can see them through the file explorer?
No.
No. Okay. Even after enabling the hidden files, nothing like that.
Right. Because hidden files just shows you the files that have the hidden attribute turned on.
Yeah, it's an attribute. Okay.
Right. They don't show alternate streams.
Got it.
They show this stream. Now, I suppose you could write your own Explorer that when you click on a file, it'll show you the alternate streams, right? So I could write my own file explorer that has like another pane over here, like a preview pane over here, right? Like this one does. I could bring up the preview pane. It's in there somewhere. There we go. Details pane, preview pane, right?
Yeah.
So I could do something that has a preview pane so that when I click on this file here, it shows me the alternate stream files. Sure. But it's not going to do that by default, and you don't really care by default, right? I mean, so what if it's got a zone identifier, right? I can always come in here and just unblock it, which is a lot easier. So, yeah, you don't really need it. It's really more for, to keep track of metadata that you would need programmatically. Like I said, in our case, a good example of that would be storing some encryption information or something in there. But I don't know anybody that looks for alternate file streams when doing stuff like that. And if you want to have a cross-platform application, like you want your app to also work with Linux, right? This method won't work because you don't have NTFS in Linux, right? So you couldn't rely on an application. So if you use an alternate file stream in your application, you better be you better be damn ready for it to not be ported over to Linux. You better be damn sure that you want it to stay on Windows. That's why it's a lot of times considered not a good idea. But since I usually don't write anything for Linux, then I'm down. Right?
Mm.
I only write stuff for Windows, so I'm down. And Linux is all NTFS these days anyway. So I mean, practically speaking. But there you go. If there's nothing else, then we can go ahead and end the recording, and we'll call that a lesson.
Yeah.